inside. Oh, fire. Perfect world. Everybody's out there crying to be heard, but I got a new fire burning my heart, lighting up the darkness and moving like a meteorite. Oh, fire. You ready, Jim? You ready? Sorry, I couldn't hear it on my end. So welcome to, can you hear me? We ready? Okay, welcome to RenéMarie Stokova. I'm RenéMarie. And this, I gotta say, out of the 8 years is probably one of my favorite shows. Not all my favorite shows, but one of my favorite shows, because it really is bringing back some fond and wonderful and loving and incredible memories to me of my youth, with our special guest, Jimmy O'Hagan. Jimmy is a dear friend for, I don't want to say how many years, but we were in first grade when Jimmy moved, his family, the O'Hagan family, moved to Hawthorne, and we both went to St. Anthony's together with his brothers and my sister and his sister. And it really, I can't even tell you, we could probably write an incredible book ourselves about the journey that we all went on. There's stories that this show is going to bring back, wonderful memories, but also it's going to share with you Jimmy's next path in his career. And that's coaching. That's coaching to people that are looking for jobs. And in the industry, we all have spoken about many times, and we spoke about this in the Zoom green room, that COVID really hit us hard. And it hit us where we were looking for changes and looking for, we really did find out that life is short. And what are we going to do that we're going to enjoy to do? It doesn't mean that you can't work, because you got to survive. But you have to find something they have a passion for. And this is such an incredible show with Jimmy, and I can't wait for Judy to read her press and for us to get into a conversation with Jimmy about him and his family. And his family is a huge staple in the Hawthorne community, and we'll get to that in a few minutes. But I do want to share a few things that we have going on with the foundation. Oh, and I should have sent Jim the support group, but I forgot. But that's okay. So Jim, can you show some of the photos that you had that I sent to you just to share? We're kind of taking it easy this year with our this summer, I should say, with our Stroke of Luck show, because we're doing a lot of back end work, gearing up for our next season, which we're going to kick off in September. And Jim, do you have the flyer up? So that's our new flyer. The RenéMarie Stroke of Luck podcast. And of course, Judy and Jim are just a huge part of that world. So I'm blessed. That's how I say it in my press, but I'm honestly blessed to have them in my life and to work with them. And this show could not be possible without them. So thank you so much. Jim, put up the next one. The next one is the newsletter one. So I also wanted to share that, I really wanted to start to use stuff that I have a passion for, right? Because the next phase of my life, when I retire from my career in the activities and director and community world, is going to be to support people. And I do it now, but on a minimal basis, helping with newsletter designs and flyers and PowerPoints. I love to create. I love to help people to shine. And I think that in that world, I can help you to shine. So that's what that flyer is about. And then we have one more where Bob Kern, our wonderful entertainer who's a part of our team, and I have decided, and Judy doesn't know about this, the second time around, we're going to DJ specially for second weddings. So second weddings are our world, and we love that music, and music is just very powerful and speaks volumes to people. So we're looking to do that as well. So, and then you could show my extra inning photo, Jim. So everybody knows that I've been in the process for many years to write the extra inning book. And I thought it was a great time to bring it up again because Jimmy is here, and really everybody knows, or if you're new to our world, I suffered a stroke at the age 26. I had an out-of-body experience. I spoke to God. God shared with me my passion, my mission. But it was funny because as I was going through this journey to start to create my next path in my life after surviving a stroke, and Jimmy will like this, there was an old friend, Eddie Devine. Oh, he called me up out of the blue. And he started talking to me, and I was like, oh, I got to do this. I'm going to do that. Blah, blah, blah. He goes, Renee, he goes, relax. He goes, and it's funny, Jimmy, because Eddie Devine, I haven't spoken to him in years since then. And he says to me, he goes, Renee, he goes, let's speak in the sports terms. He goes, you're an athlete. He goes, everybody doesn't need to know what the other player is doing. All they got to do is focus on their position and play the best job that they can. And then the manager and the coaches could keep everybody together and in tune and as a teamwork. And I'm like, wow, that really sounds good. So that was the concept that I started to mold into using my softball experience, my softball passion, and the sports world passion, which we'll get into with Jimmy. And that's why I love this show. It's called Coach, because everyone needs coaches in their lives. Nobody can survive without a mentor, a coach, a confidant. You need to form that little circle around you to be able to survive in life, because life is very difficult and it's challenging. And when people come at you or they're not in alignment with your visions, then what are you going to do about it? And so I can't wait to start talking to Jimmy. Jimmy, thank you so much for being part of our show. like I said to everybody before we start, I know he's known by Jim O'Hagan in the world, but he's a Jimmy to me because that's what I used to call him in first grade. So
Yeah, thanks so much, Renee. And that, like I said before in the green room, that's a Hawthorne thing for sure. And I love it. You know, I don't refer to myself that way, but anyone who talks about me or to me from Hawthorne, that's my name, and I love it. So
yeah.
it's wonderful. And I can't thank you all enough for bringing me on and giving me an opportunity to speak with you. We've been, like Renee said, we've been friends forever, and we've had a special bond since as far back as I can remember. Just the friendship, the love, the heart connection that Renee and I have always had. It's just been beautiful, and with our families too.
Yeah.
And you know, my sister says it beautifully all the time. She goes, all roads lead to Hawthorne. You know, it's like, it's such a community that, and I say that in my posts on my little business here for now, that like, just everyone supporting me and you know, sincerely concerned and wanting to help is just beyond a blessing. Because I'd be honest, I'm not comfortable kind of asking for help, you know, especially from people that I love and know. But I'm pushing through that a bit because I really am very passionate about what I'm doing, and I'm seeing some really good results in it. So I greatly appreciate everyone's love and support in this endeavor that I'm doing.
Jimmy, it's because when you're passionate about something, everything else follows. Everything just falls in alignment, right? When you're doing what you're meant to do, then that's where everything falls in alignment. And that's what you're trying to teach to the young college students. And actually we were talking before, you know, the people our age now, the older people who, not older, but you know, the more,
yeah, we're older.
No. I'm going to say the more mature people.
Yeah, that's my line. I say more mature.
even though the older we get, we go backwards.
Right.
We're like,
Exactly. No doubt.
you know. So Judy, I put you on mute. I put you on mute because you got up during the intro. But I also want to make sure that we get to, and you know, initially when we start, I want to talk about your parents, because your parents are the foundation, and Jim in the studio has a photo. We're going to talk about that, but we're going to let Judy do her wonderful press. And I got to tell everybody, you know, putting on a show is a lot, you know, like it's not something that you just get together and you do. There's a lot of back end work, and without Judy doing that back end work, these shows would not be possible. Judy really does, like, you know, Jimmy will tell you, they must have had 20 million conversations up to it.
And not quite 20 million.
I'm just saying. But the interesting thing is, and this is why I love the show, is Judy brings a different perspective to this show. Judy used to be on the hiring end, and now Jimmy is on the coaching to go for a job end.
Actually, it was recruiting. They're recruiting it.
Right, recruiting it. But you were looking for the perfect person. So you asked the questions that Jimmy's trying to teach that are being asked. So read your press and then we'll get into it.
Welcome, Jim. We appreciate your being here.
Thank you.
Jim O'Hagan, president, owner of O'Hagan Career Coaching, with over 35-year plus extensive experience managing, hiring, and training some of the most successful sales and recruiting teams in the staffing industry. OCC prides itself in interviewing, preparation, and coaching. The goal is to work together with applicants to discover their most marketable skills and stories, giving them the confidence to excel in any professional setting. OCC offers 2 plans. The silver plan is one 60-minute individualized interview prep session to assess and enhance baseline skills. And the gold plan is 2 60-minute intensive interviews and workforce preparation sessions. Jim is a certified career coach, IIAP College. He's been doing presentations and interviews at Rutgers University, Ramapo College, Montclair State University, Fairleigh Dickinson University, Rowan University, New York NYC Data Science Academy, Berkeley College, Neighbors Helping Neighbors, Interview Coach NTT Data, Texas Summer Intern Program, Renew Life Center, Lighthouse Pregnancy Resource Center. RenéMarie has been very dear friends with Jimmy O'Hagan since grammar school days and has expressed that Jim's family has been a huge staple in the Hawthorne, New Jersey community. And RenéMarie feels his honorable faith is the foundation of his work ethic. I, Judy Morrow, executive booking agent, co-host, will add to this conversation about professional staffing from my own research, recruiting, hiring experiences over a 20-plus year experience as an executive recruiting with an executive recruiting background. This RenéMarie Stroke of Luck show will highlight insights and conversations to motivate audiences worldwide. And again, we welcome you, Jimmy.
Thank you. Thank you. All right, enough about me. Let's get going.
You want me to set the, you and I have to, it's just, remarkable. But let's go, Jimmy, let's go back to the Hawthorne Little League years, right? Because that was setting you up for today. Did the Hawthorne Little League, did the Hawthorne High School, did your college sports athlete career help you to create what you're doing today?
Yeah, thank you for that. Yes, honestly, I would say this to a lot of the kids that I coach. If I was at all successful in my life, it's really because of what I've learned on sports. From Fred Crisatelli, Frank Cabral, Al Birch, my dad, Fred Goldie, like I can't even, there's so many coaches that I can think of that, taught us the value of working in a team and working hard and calling you out when you didn't work hard in a loving way, sometimes a little aggressively, but that's okay. It made us better men. And it's things that I've leaned into my entire life. Being a captain of the teams and being responsible for things like that and just owning that piece of it has 100% helped me in everything I've done. Always had to work hard in school. School didn't necessarily come easy to me.
Me neither.
But I always worked hard. But the interpersonal skills and the leadership kind of stuff was really, my parents, mostly my dad. He was our first coach. My whole family, my brothers and my sisters, coached us in baseball on Diamond Liquors, 1971, 73 champs, by the way.
You're on Diamond Liquors. I was on Hawthorne Liquors.
Yeah, there you go. Big and both are still in business. That's pretty good.
Yeah.
And then I went to Olson's Pharmacy in what's that? Little League, I guess it was Midget League, and then Little League, and that was Joe Pisota. Oh my God, what a great man he was, and we had some really good teams there. And then played a GMC in JD, and that was, I guess, what was it? Paul Merlino. Oh my God, I can remember all the coaches, and all had absolute influences on everything I did. I would say mostly football, though, being candid, because I know there's a lot of things right now with the danger in it and all that, but but what you learn in that sport specifically, because it's so hard and it's so tough, and the friendships that I have. I mean, I'm still friends with Tony Cass and Lou Axford and all these. You know them all, right? Like we still hang out. I'm still on texting with Paul Elwood and Ultimus and all these guys that I've known since first grade.
Yeah.
And the tie in there is Hawthorne and sports, no question about it.
Yeah, and your parents.
And the parents. Yeah, 100%.
So why, I mean, I know you talk about football, but what were some of the pinpoint moments? Like, what were some, like, give an example.
Yeah, sure.
One of the lessons that hit you the hardest that you had to learn.
Absolutely. Well, training in the summer to be in good shape. Like Coach DeMeo would give us a running program or a training program in the summer. And I remember my brother Pat and I down at the track, you know, running a 400, walking a 400, doing push-ups, running the stairs, like all that kind of stuff to prepare for triple sessions. We would have triple sessions in the summer. You know, once we started practicing. So 3 practices a day. And just, you know, the grit that you have to develop to compete in that, just to me prepared me for everything in my life, in my career. 100%. There's so many things.
Yeah, I mean, I always talk about Pat Talaferro, Barbara Stewart, and Karen Meyer on this show. Like that's their staple in my world. Mr. Greenwood,
Oh,
I'll never forget Mr. Greenwood. You know, when I was a freshman in high school, and we had Mrs. Hayak, and she was wonderful, Mrs. Hayak. I love Mrs. Hayak, but we needed that. So, you know, every World History, I'd go to Mr. Greenwood. Mr. Greenwood, you have to be our coach. You have to be our coach. You have to be our coach.
Yeah.
We need you. We need you. We need you. And he comes to me, Nay, I'm in. And he was our coach.
Yeah.
But the camaraderie, the reason I bring that up is the camaraderie that he established between the team. We not only practiced every morning, every afternoon, every weekend, but we also went to play racquetball together. And we also hung out together. We went with the Elmwood Park softball team for a camping trip. So he was teaching us in another format the bonding and the it's almost like, you know, in the business world of people going out for a networking or people going out to play golf. There's a lot of value in that because you learn other things, and the truth is that each person is different. So you have to go into each interview, and we'll talk about this. Do you find that, do you teach your I don't want to call them students, what do you call
clients?
What do you call, do you teach your clients that they need to read the person that's asking the question?
100%. And it's so much of it comes down for them to be prepared. Right. Because like what you're saying right now really dovetails into nicely how I start all of my conversations. So I try to find what that person is passionate about. So if it's sports or their grades, or if it's music, or it's anything like that, trying to say, well, would you ever, if it's their grades, I said, well, would you ever take a test without studying? Of course I would, right? So you need to tap into now that mindset for your interview, because there's nothing more important than where you're going today. So a lot of times, being an athlete myself, I would tap into that with a lot of my clients. Like, okay, it's game time right now. You're going to be prepared, right? You're going to go in there loaded and ready, right? You're not going to half-ass this, right? Because you just can't. It's who you are, right? And a lot of times when you start to talk to these young folks that way, their guard comes down a little bit and their confidence rises, which is just beautiful, because a lot of times these young kids, they don't think they even have a story to tell. Right. It's like, no, you do. Trust me, you have a story. And the good news is you're not interviewing against a guy like me who has a lot of experience. You're interviewing against your peers. Right. They don't have a lot of experience either, right? So if we can build your story and really tear into what motivates you, the kind of person you are, that's going to put you above everybody else in this interview, especially for entry level, because so much of, and I don't mean this offensively, they don't have a lot to offer yet. What they have to offer is their work ethic, their attitude, how they were raised, things along those lines. And a lot of times my clients or the kids don't think that that's part of a story, where it really is. So seeing that and seeing the veil kind of come up and their confidence rise is just, it's the best feeling. Yeah. That's what I really love.
So what did you look for when you were looking for prospective recruiter, when you were a recruiter? What were you looking for?
Yeah, because I hired hundreds of salespeople and recruiters in my career. So I would default to one. I love athletes. I just do, because they're
They're trained.
driven,
Their
hard
mind
work.
is trained.
Yeah.
Their
Exactly.
mind is trained.
Yes, exactly. So that worked well for me because I still think I'm an athlete, but it's more like my wiring than physically, right? Like it's like no one's going to beat me. I'm always going to out hustle the next person. I'm always going to be prepared. I'm going to work harder than everybody. Like that's the kind of thing that I always try to implement or look for in people when I was hiring them. Because in the staffing field, like Judy, it's thank God it's not rocket science. It really isn't because I wouldn't have been able to do it. But you have to have gumption and toughness and fortitude and all those things that sports bring to you, because so many things are outside of your control in a sales role. So are you going to shrink up, or are you going to rise up, right? And that's where athletes, I think, a lot of times have that. It's not just athletes. That could be, again, when I try to talk to kids, it's like, well, what's your passion? What are you passionate about? So you got to bring that today into this interview. My middle daughter is very, very talented in the arts world, right? She's a really good singer and all that kind of stuff.
Didn't she perform for me at my first? Yes, and I was looking for that photo. I'm gonna.
Yeah.
But she was in, Judy, you don't know this, but when we had many years ago in 2012,
Yeah, it's a long time ago.
Yeah, long time ago. I started a fundraiser for my first launch of getting my foundation up and running at the Grand Chalet. And Jimmy's daughters, which one daughter was it?
Carly and her friends.
She sang, they did a duet. They were wonderful. I gotta look for that video. I probably have that video.
She may not want that video to come out when, as a teacher, but because kids are busted chops. But I know they did a great job.
They did a great job.
Yeah, no, they're really talented kids, no doubt. But my point is that when she interviewed for jobs, I'm like, all right, kid, you're on stage today. Like, there's nothing more important than where you're going, right? I always tell the kids, like, you need to go into character, right? So if you're shy or a little low key, not today. It's game time, right? You have to rise up and fight through those fears. And the good news is I help them through that in my coaching. So what we'll do is the first session, like you said, Judy, I kind of go through their resume, get some baseline skills. And then the second time I give them some homework, some really good tools to practice, to build their stories. And then the second one is like a really intensive mock interview. All right. And it's very iterative, so, okay, tell me about yourself. What are your greatest strengths and weaknesses? Okay, let's try that again. Let's dig a little deeper. Let's have a little more detail on something like that. And then you just see them kind of, their confidence raise up. And then the questions in a certain way don't become as scary because they kind of know where their answers are going to line up. So
right. And when you know what, it's all about the practice, right? It's all about practicing. Like you said, you wouldn't go into a test without studying for it. And studying takes time and memory, and you have to build up your memory. You have to build up your brain for that type of adventure,
Exactly.
So,
and to what you were saying before too, the world is very competitive out there right now, right?
Oh, yeah.
So I tell my kids that I coach, like, you have to envision that there's 50 other people outside that door wanting that job. And so you're not going to go into that without being really prepared and really loaded for bear for this position. Yeah. And it really helps them kind of put some stories around how they need to behave for them to kind of get on their game a little bit.
Yeah. Judy, put your 2 cents in, and then I want to talk about to me, when I'm interviewing somebody or I'm getting to know somebody, I think their honesty and their authenticity is very important, very more important. But we'll get to that in 1 second. Judy, talk about your world.
I have worked on both sides, the agency side as a headhunter, and about 25 years into that, I wanted to work less hours, and I worked on the corporate side. And I was told how impossible that was going to be because I came from the agency side, but I'll explain that later. From the recruiter side, I had my clients. They would give me I worked in accounting and finance. They would give me, let's say, an executive vice president if they were looking for. I would recruit from non-clients. So I had to know who their competitors were that we were not working with.
Hmm.
And then I had to call that company up and pretend that I was writing a letter to the executive vice president or whatever the title was, and the correct spelling of the person's name. Then I would wait a period of time and call back. Now, you may laugh at this, but if it was an Italian name, I had to get through the receptionist. And that could be the hardest part.
Yep.
And I couldn't say what I was really calling about. So if it was an Italian name, I would try using an Italian accent and ask for that person. For instance, who's calling? It's Antonio Bianchi's office. Well, they would put me right through to the person. And then I would say, excuse the ruse. My name is Judy Morlow. I'm an executive recruiter, and I'm working on this assignment, and basically tell them an overview of what I was looking for, and not indicate that it was that person I wanted. I would say, do you know of anyone? And they would say, oh my God, that's what I do. I knew that already because I did the research on that person. And I would say, I'd like to talk to you this evening. May I have your phone number? And then I would interview them that night. Now, it's a little different at this period of time because that was like 30 years ago.
Yeah, that's old school.
I would have a 9-point close. In other words, I would ask 9 questions to decide whether or not I was going to interview this person. And I wanted to know about their background. Now you can email a resume right away. I had to take notes and then get the resume after that. So I had to know without wasting time whether this person was going to be good or not. And after the 9 questions, the biggest point was, why are they doing this? Would they be doing it for a counteroffer? If they're doing this for a counteroffer to get more money from their own boss, then they're going to lose both jobs. They're going to lose the one they have and the one that they're interested in. So I would have to prepare them. I would have to interview. I'd have to make sure everything was all right. And if there was travel involved, I would say to them before I called them at night, I would say, there's 90% travel, or whatever the travel was. Please discuss it with your wife or your husband first, so that when we start talking, we have covered that already.
You know what, Judy, that's pretty, you both are speaking the same language in completely different personas, because the same thing that Jimmy just said about getting to know his clients, the same thing that you were doing, you were forming a relationship with them to make sure that this job was good for them, like it was the right move.
They were supposedly happy with where they were. They
Yeah.
were not looking for a job.
Right.
So
Right.
I had to spark interest. Then I had to know why they would pursue it if they had the opportunity. And then if I did present them, I told them that other agencies were working on it as well. And that if they got an offer, if the client told me that they were getting an offer, I would say to them that there's a possibility of an offer. However, there's someone else they're considering, because I had to keep them in line so that they didn't ask for more money or more perks than they were offering.
You know, I mean, let's get to trust and authenticity in 2 seconds, but I know I saw you write something down, Jimmy, but I want to bring this. So Jimmy, you teach your clients to go into a job. Now, what if they don't feel the connection with them? What if they don't think, do you send them in with that knowledge that this may not be a job you want. You know what I'm saying? Like, you're doing everything you want to do, you're preparing yourself, but just be ready that this may not be the right job for you. You have to, you're interviewing them as they're interviewing you. So talk to me a little bit about that.
Yeah, absolutely. I think that's an important piece of it too. But one of the things I always try to tell, especially focus on the younger folks, right? The kids right out of school, they don't know what they don't know yet, right?
Right.
A lot of times, and I think some of what we're doing, some of the messaging that some of the younger folks are getting these days might be a little challenging, because like everyone's like, follow your passion, do what you love, all that kind of stuff. I get that. That's 100% true. You want that. If you can make that happen at 22 years old, God bless you. I couldn't make that happen until I was 58 years old.
Yeah.
Because I had to earn a living. I had to take care of my family, all that kind of stuff, right? Same here, babe, right? So that's right. So there was a lot of grinding years, and what Judy was just talking about brought back so many horrible memories for me, because that's really hard work what she did. And I would come in and try to teach my guys to recruit that way, and they didn't have the gumption to do it. So that's a whole nother podcast, like we said before, Judy, right?
I said you'll come back on because there's so many things we need to talk about.
So that's something, but so I tell my kids or my clients that go in, I'm like, go after the job like you want it. Okay. You want to put yourself in the best position to turn them down.
Yes.
Right. Because you never know. The thing that I always I can't tell you how many times someone may have started in one job, and then 6 months later, they got promoted to do something else within that organization.
Yeah. Yeah.
Right. So don't go in with, of course, you want to do what you're passionate about as best as possible, but you also need to earn, and you also need to gather good experience. You need to get to work, right? Let's get to work and do the best you can. And then I always tell my folks then is that one of the techniques I teach them is like, make sure you keep a journal of everything that's happening. Even it might be the most minute thing. Oh, I had a great meeting with this manager today. This manager said this about me. Oh, I got this wonderful email from one of my managers giving me kudos on a project that I worked on. So now what we start to do, and I tell them, is now you're tangibly building your story for your next opportunity.
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah.
Because now you have tangible, actionable items that you and I can work together with now and build a really good story. Because I always try to teach the kids to say, even like someone worked at a summer job. Like for me, I worked 3 jobs during college. I've been working since I'm 13 years old, and I'm not blowing my hornets, right? We're the same, right? We're raised the same, right? But there's a lot of value in that. Like, I'll tell you a quick story. This one kid I was coaching years ago, he's like, I said, okay, Dave, tell me about yourself. He goes right to his resume, and he was right out of college. I went to Montclair State. I studied marketing. I got a 3.5 GPA, but I'm like, that's awesome. It's a good answer, Dave, but it's not a great answer. And I said to him, because I knew his family, I said, when I go mountain biking on a Saturday morning and I see you at the garden center, is that the kid that I see? That's you? He goes, yeah, that's me. I said, okay, cool. When I come back later at 4 or 5 o'clock doing errands and running around, and I see you there, is that the same kid that I know? He goes, yeah. I'm like, okay, well, why did you do that? He goes, well, I had to pay for part of my college. I'm like, okay, cool. What were your friends doing when you were doing that? Well, they were down the shore.
Story.
They were down the shore partying, right? And I said, what else came out of that? And he goes, well, I ended up buying my own truck from it. I'm like, oh my God, kid, there's your story, right? And now I'm not blowing smoke, right? But he had an interview the next day and got the job because of that. Because we worked on a story together that, again, he doesn't have a lot of experience, but he's got a great heart, a great family, an incredible work ethic, right? And to me, especially entry level, that's what they need to hire, right? Because, and I tell my guys this all the time, that manager's that's sitting across the table from you, he had big arms to get budget for that position. So his head is in a ringer right now. Right? I know I sound a little crazy with that, but he is looking through to your heart and soul to know that they can trust you. Yeah. Are you gonna show up hungover on a Friday morning? No, I'm gonna come to work, right? That's what and when I start telling the kids that stuff, oh my gosh, they just like open up, and it's like, oh wow, their confidence starts to rise up, and then they feel like, oh my gosh. And then what we do is I give them some really good tools to vet out their stories with the really tough questions. And then we work on it together to make sure it's tight and strong and powerful for what the client, the hiring manager wants to hear, so they can put themselves in the best position to get the job.
I just like to add just something to that story, because when I started out, I was in public relations
Mhm.
and was supposed to work for one boss, ended up with 5, went to human resources, complained, and they said, all right, hold on, there's a new person coming into sales promotion. I said, I don't know anything about sales promotion.
Mhm.
And she said, I think you could do it. And she switched me over.
It's
And
awesome.
that boss taught me sales promotion, sales, marketing, and
Mhm.
advertising, and gave me a project where I dealt with homeowner clinics and remodeling nights across the United States. When the company moved and I went to an agency, they said, you are going nowhere. You're staying right here. You've got everything we need for a recruiter.
Yep.
And that
It's
was the
funny.
story.
It's
And it
funny how
reminded me,
things work that way, right? Where, like, I joke about it. I fell into the recruiting field. The agency that I ended up working with was in the same building that my aunt worked in.
oh my.
They placed me in my first 2 sales jobs. And
Wow.
then I heard through the grapevine about this recruiting thing, and then I ended up working there. So, and you know, praise God, I had a really nice career in it. And
So
as you
you
know,
start
Judy,
in one
really,
area, but you don't know where you're going to be going from there.
exactly.
It's
And then what happened?
unlimited.
I did permanent hire like you did, like you. So I made those very, very difficult calls like you were talking about, because there was no internet then or no computers then either,
Right,
which
right.
is crazy, right? It was all on the phone. But then I actually went into IT staffing. That was more of a consulting. So where you place someone on a temporary basis and, you know, worked in that. And that was a much better fit for me long term.
I just want to add one other thing. After 25 years of executive recruiting, working 11-hour days, because whoever you recruited,
Hard.
you had to interview, you had so much work to do before you could present it. I
Mhm.
decided I wanted to work on the corporate side. And there was an opening in a bank as for a senior recruiter. And they wanted you to also go to Buffalo. It was Gold
Mhm.
Dome Bank, and they wanted you to go to Buffalo as well to interview.
Mhm.
And my friend said, you're not going to get the job because you were an executive recruiter headhunter and they're not going to trust you. So when I went on the interview, I told them how I was going to save them money, because
Mhm.
I knew how to prevent people from agencies from stealing their workers, their employees.
Mhm.
Okay. And they were impressed with that.
That's
And
awesome.
then when I was working there, they hired me and all that. They gave me a job to work on for an HVAC engineer. Now, I was doing accounting and finance. I didn't know anything about engineering. And they said, you have to come to Buffalo. I said, where does the person work? Only in Buffalo? Oh, no, they're going to work in Buffalo and New York City.
Mhm.
So I said, would you give me a few days to work on this? And perhaps I could save you plane fare, hotel costs, and all that, and maybe be able to do it from here. And give me a few days to try it. And there was nobody in the files that met the qualifications, and you can't recruit on the corporate side. So I ran an ad. I narrowed down, I must have had about 1,000 candidates. I narrowed it down to 3 that I interviewed, 3 that I presented on the phone to Buffalo. The woman said, oh my God, this is perfect. And she
Mhm.
came to New York, and the CEO, she asked me which of the 3 I thought was I said, it's between 2 of them, and it's based on personality, in my opinion.
Yeah, no,
One
agreed.
of them was hired. And from that point on, I handled all of Buffalo and New York City
That's
without
awesome.
traveling.
That's awesome. God, that's great stuff. That's great
So
stuff.
Jimmy and Judy touched on the authenticity and trust before we even uh, began the topic. So the way that life works when you flow into things.
Yeah,
So,
agreed.
you know what, Jimmy, I was looking at some of your posts and I saw this one.
Yeah.
This
Dale
is,
Carnegie.
when I was, one day, I was between jobs, and I wish you were around, that I was working as a temp in Pennsylvania, an hour and a half there every day,
Oh my
Mhm.
God.
and 3 hours coming back. So what I did was I listened to motivational books
Tapes.
and on the podcasts and stuff on YouTube. And this was one that I really listened to. I listened to the whole book. And what I mean, they're so simple, Jimmy.
Yeah.
But yet it's hard to follow, you know? And so let's talk about,
Love that.
you coach and you practice, but in between, you got to live it. You have to live it. You have to always be in that mindset, because you don't want to transition out, especially when it's an important piece. Like when many years ago, I went for my real estate license. It was really difficult, a real estate license, and
Yeah, that's
everything you learn on it, you don't use any of it. You use
right.
none of it,
Yep. Mm.
So what I did was I was living it. I was breathing it. I had headphones on. I was listening to it. And that was how I trained myself to pass it the second time, which I have no idea how I passed it. Because
Did you do it?
I am not a test taker.
Did you become a real estate?
Yes, but then I gave my license up because I don't like to sell to people.
Yeah, that's a lot.
I like to go and you want this? Oh my God, this is wonderful. Yes, we could do this. I'm in a different world. I am not good at that world. I'm not good at that world. But talk to us about that, Jimmy. Talk us about staying in the mindset while they are preparing for the interview and preparing for life, because honestly, you're helping them prepare for life. And then I want to talk about, do you help them get the job and then they stay with it and then their next step in their life? So let's touch on the where their mind should be.
No, you're so great, because so many of the things you're talking about are really what makes the difference, right?
Yeah.
So it's really how you approach anything. If you approach it with passion, you approach it being prepared. That's what's really the key. So, and I've been fortunate to help some of my clients actually get jobs. That wasn't necessarily my intention at first, which is great. But there's two young guys that I placed back in one of my old companies. One kid coming out of the Coast Guard didn't really feel how he was going to be able to transition into the workforce. And I just like, dude, what did you do for the Coast Guard? Well, I ran all operations, the entire East Coast. I'm like, oh, okay. You don't think you can handle a little sales job, dude?
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah.
Are you kidding me? But he didn't really think he could. So sitting with him and going through and teaching him what to say, and he was also an athlete. He pitched for the Coast Guard. I'm like, and the kid's a stud. I'm like, dude, I would hire you in a second, right?
Yeah.
But he needed the words to be able to draw out his story. So I submitted him and another kid to buddies that I knew at my old company. I'm like, if I were still with you guys, I'd hire them. They brought him in and they hired him.
Yeah.
And they're both now, the best part about it is, and I pray it all works out for them, but now they have really tangible life experience, work experience that they can leverage into whatever's next for them. Right? That's one thing I always tell the kids. It's I don't mean this in a negative way. It's only your first job. Okay? It's only your first job, but it's your first job that you're going to gain as much as you can out of this.
That's right.
And grow from it, right? And you're going to pull so much from that. And if we work again together, I'm going to help you develop that story like you can't believe it, not in a false way, but really build up what you've learned and now how you can bring that to the table.
And their own experiences.
Yeah, absolutely. To your point, Renee, though, some of the things I really enjoy with one of my offerings is once someone's placed or someone gets a job, that transition from sort of college into the workforce is really challenging for some of these younger kids, right? So I'm kind of like a guide and coach for them for the first 2 or 3 months. call me once a week. You know, I say once a week, but it's like, call me anytime, of course, right? So I talk to them all the time. I had a rough meeting today, or I have this, or I'm planning this. Oh, you know, that kind of stuff, just to help them to be another voice to help them transition that. And I also teach them to go in very intentionally every day to work. Okay. I tell them, treat every interaction you have at your new job,
Yep.
first 6 months, as if it was an interview.
And you got to listen a lot, right? So, I mean, you have to take in what is being fed to you, and then, in my world, go back and call you and talk to you, and then have a voice when you go back, because that'll show your initiative. That'll show that you want to be a part of the conversation. And any, you know, in my world, I always tell, you know, my bosses or whatever, listen, you know, this is my recommendation, but any way you want me to proceed, just give me the guidance, and that's how I'm going to follow suit. You know?
Yeah, people love, good managers love when people take initiative, right? But it also, so much of it is the approach and how you say things, right? That's really what's, because you could be this, and I've dealt a lot with this with some of my IT guys that I've worked with in the past. It's great that you're the smartest guy in the room, dude, but if they don't like you, it doesn't matter.
Yeah, we spoke about that in the Zoom green room about how Pat Talaferro would I want to say this correctly because I don't want to put words in her mouth, but she would take a team and she would look at someone that would come every day. I mean, me, Jimmy, I would be there an hour before practice, sitting on the bench, looking at my watch saying, where is everybody? Like, where is everybody? Like, why don't they want to play? But then you have people that stroll in that say, oh yeah, I was at the mall. I was I was late. So Pat would say, well, if you don't want to be a part of this team, it's okay. You can be on it, but you're not going to start, because I'm going to start this person who was there every day, dedicated, give her life.
Definitely.
It didn't matter. So like, I get it, you know?
Yeah, no one's bigger than the team, right? And the thing is too, with some of that, hopefully good managers notice that, right? So, but if you go in with an intention every day to make a good impression, and thank you for sharing that post, because those kind of things that how to win friends, influence people, those are the things you need to be doing on a day-to-day basis in your job.
Right.
Because if you're not intentional about advancing your career, it's not going to happen, right? So
that's
if you
part
make a
of the
good
Dale
impression,
Carnegie course.
yeah, exactly. That's
which
exactly
I took,
right.
by the way.
It is.
That's
Dale
right.
Carnegie.
So I think that's an important thing for people to get accustomed to doing, and that's what I'm teaching my clients, and it feels good to see it.
And if anybody has a problem speaking to audiences, because at work maybe they're asked to, you know, give a presentation or whatever, the Dale Carnegie course is very helpful.
Absolutely.
I was very shy when I was asked to do some of these presentations, and after taking the course, I can't stop talking.
Yeah.
But you know what? It's good. I mean, that's another whole conversation. You know, you are who you surround yourself with, right? You are what you keep reading and you keep talking about, and you keep watching on TV or watching on iPads. You become that. So it's important to have those motivational parts of your life, you know, like when I get into, when I want to do something, I listen to Joel Osteen, I listen to Wayne Dyer. I took a Wayne Dyer class. I took Silver Mind. I mean, because I always try to make sure that I'm thinking clearly and I'm doing things from an intentional place.
I totally agree with that. I totally agree with that. And I had a boss in the recruiting field that took us to to hear motivational speakers. And I bought a whole bunch of those motivational tapes and listened to it while I was driving.
Yeah, no doubt. Well, again, like you were saying, it's all about being intentional, right? Yeah. And, you know, to me, and maybe this is again how I'm raised. We're all factors of how we were raised, right? You know, my parents hammered work ethic into us as far back as I can remember, right? So same, right? But that's valuable to a client.
Yeah.
So once I'm on a job, I'm all in. I'm all serious. You know, of course, we're going to have fun in the right time, but no one's going to out hustle me. No one's going to outwork me, and that's where I think I've been successful in my life. And I try to get to teach the younger kids that that's the way you need to approach it. So
Yeah.
being very intentional about that and making sure that you're making a good impression, because you could be working in one position and then 6 months later said, oh, who is that kid?
Yeah.
Oh, I got a better spot. Let me pull you over here. And then all of a sudden you're on a different track. That could mean a raise, that can mean more responsibility,
Yeah.
because you were intentional about making a good impression every day.
Yeah.
That
Yeah.
is so important. It really is.
And
So,
if you're getting letters, or your boss is getting letters about your work, and he or she shows them to you, you should keep a copy.
100%. Yeah.
Yeah,
Yep.
absolutely.
Brag. Absolutely.
I
Keep track
have
of it.
I went to your website, Jimmy, and I got some testimonials. Jim O'Hagan is one of the most engaging, creative, friendly, and successful professional career advisors I have ever met in nearly 4 years of my career. Another one. Jimmy, being Jim, being my manager mentor was a single most pivotal moment in my professional life. Through his teachings, I have made moves in my career I never thought were possible. Jim has spent over 30 years in sales, recruiting, and the guidance he has given candidates and colleagues has helped thousands of people beginning or advance their careers. One more. There's a very brief window to set yourself apart from other applicants. And Jim is the gold standard to prepare for success. What an incredible way to end our show for today, Jimmy.
Thank
You're an
you.
asset to anybody who knows you.
Yes, yes.
Well,
And
you're
and
so
and,
kind.
and,
I appreciate that.
and I really want to reiterate that I believe that it's from his upbringing and just the Hawthorne world.
Yeah.
You know, we were bonded, and we really, I mean, I know that if I would call Jimmy at any specific time, day or night, he would, Michael, Patrick, Margaret, they would be there in a split without even asking why, without even
100.
asking why. And I know he brings that to his clients. I know it without hesitation. So, you know, I pray that you continue to do what you love to do, Jimmy, because, you know, I look at it, it's the third career in my life. You know,
100%.
my first career was what was it? It was softball. My second career was music, and
Yep.
my third career is really giving back. It really is about, how do I leave my mark in the world? How do I use all the gifts that I've received?
And you certainly are doing that.
Oh, thank you, thank you. And how do we do that? Like, you got to have some drive and passion, and it's a blessing. We're so blessed to have you, Jimmy. Come back, and we'll have you invite in 6 months so that we could continue to talk and to motivate people.
All right.
And one of the reasons that we do this on the show, because I know it's about stroke and aphasia, and Judy and I spoke about this, but, you know, strokes, and maybe Jimmy, you could tap into this on the next show. You know,
Sure.
suffer a stroke, and it really does affect your brain and your confidence. And how do you approach a new job? How do you go back into your job? Because when you've been out, and that's just a small facet, because someone could suffer a heart attack or have cancer and have to come back. So, or a brain injury. How do you,
Or aphasia.
or aphasia? How do you transition back into that? You know,
Yeah.
I mean, I learned, and I have my ideas, and that's why I'm writing the extra inning book. And in my world, it has a great faith with God. You know, God helped me to be who I am and to give me the strength to still be here. And because I'm still here, I have an obligation to use it for my second chance. So
Oh, beautiful. I
that's
freaking love you, Renee. You're the best.
I love you too,
You're
Jimmy.
the
That's why we're
you're
here.
the best.
So,
Yeah. Oh,
yeah, you know what's, Judy, you can go in 2 seconds, but Jimmy, give everybody where they can reach out to you
sure.
and, and, um, and your, your company's name and everything one more time.
It's a very creative name. So it's OhaganCareerCoaching.com.
But it's perfect. I mean, O'Hagan Career Coaching. I mean, O'Hagan Coaching. Every
Yeah.
single O'Hagan is an athlete,
Yeah. Well, I'm hoping, I'm sure it's making my dad proud to hear, and my mom to hear that the name out there. So definitely. So
Oh,
yeah.
wait. Jim, did we show that shirt? Can we show the shirt? This is an important piece, and I'm glad we're saving it to the last. So I'll let you know when it's up, Jimmy. Hold on.
Okay.
It's up, Jim? Jim, is it up?
Yeah. He said, I can't see it.
Okay, it's there. Go ahead, it's there.
The O'Hagan,
So talk about this shirt.
This, I coached, I have 3 daughters. So for my coaching path has been mostly with the girls. So I'm kind of a girl's dad, and I'm very comfortable in that. And I took it very seriously because I coached like 7th and 8th grade girls travel, right? And as you guys know, 7th and 8th grade for girls is a very tenuous time, right? You can go the wrong way or the right way really quickly. And you could also go down the wrong path in sports really quickly if you have a bad experience with the coach, right? My oldest daughter, that happened to her. So I take it very seriously to make sure they have a really good experience. And I understand the psyche of the girls. So I guess I have a specific way of coaching them to make them motivated, to feel loved. And I always say to my kids and my parents, the parents that I coach, it's like, I hope the least that they learn from me is anything about basketball. It's more about life skills, be a teammate, and if someone fell on the ground, the rest of you help her up, like all that life stuff, and no one outworks you, all that kind of stuff. So that shirt that the parents made for me, it blows my mind. It's literally the most meaningful gift I've ever gotten as a coach. So just calling it the O'Hagan way, which and I know you get it, Renee.
I get it. And I was going to say, I mean, you're speaking from a loving place, but the O'Hagan way is just, if I look at it from outside or looking in that knows the story in the back end, the O'Hagan way is dedication, it's fire, it's happiness, it's support, it's team, it's love, it's bonding, it's all those things. It's all those things. And that's the O'Hagan way. The O'Hagan way is just to be there for. I mean, your brother Michael gives a message every day on Facebook. Have a great day, everybody. Have a great weekend. Have a great Friday. That's the O'Hagan way. We could just see it. Your sister Margaret, who we should have on the show with your brother-in-law, they wrote a book, about your mom. I mean, there's just so many things that the O'Hagan way has really that's why that verbiage is really important. And then a little tidbit is my father and your mother had a good relationship. Did you know that they worked together? They worked together for Meals on Wheels. Yeah.
Oh, come on.
Yeah.
That's crazy. Oh my gosh.
For Meals on Wheels. And they loved each other. Like my father, he would have a blast with her. He said, Pip.
Peg's a pisser. No doubt.
Yeah, she would say it like it is. She's
the best.
She was wonderful.
Yeah,
So,
wonderful.
Yeah.
Well, so thank you so much for this opportunity to talk to you guys, and so check the website out, and if I promise you, I will give you your kids or whomever my absolute best to help them succeed. I say it kind of jokingly, but my entire income for 35 years depended upon people doing well in interviews. So I've seen just about everything there is to know to help them be their best. So if you could, consider me, I'd be so flattered for it. So that's my email. I mean, that's the website, and my email is on there, jim.occs@gmail.com. So I would love to work with you guys. Thank you so much.
You're welcome, Jimmy. So thank you so much for joining us today. We're definitely gonna bring this back. Judy, did you want to share any information before we go?
What I want to share is that, Jim, I'm going to highly recommend you to everybody I know. And I will forward information, and we'll talk again on the phone about how I can be more helpful for you.
And book
I
them
love
again
you.
in
Thank
6
you. That's
months.
so kind.
Definitely, definitely.
All right.
So-
You guys are amazing. Thank you.
Jimmy, don't leave. We always blow our kisses. Okay, so thank you so much for joining us today. It was an incredible show, high energy. I just feel like motivated myself to go out and, live my life more passionately in the Jimmy way, so the O'Hagan way. So thank you so much for joining us. We'll be back next month. We're doing this once a month, two shows a month. Moving forward in September, we're going to have our whole new broadcast. We're gonna rock it. We have a lot going on in the foundation world, so stay tuned. Okay, so on 3, we blow kisses. 1, 2, 3.
Me too.
Bye, everybody.
God bless you all.
Love you guys. Take care.
Bye.
Mi amor, yo no entiendo por qué tú más que nadie sabes qué pasó en mi vida, Yo no sé qué tú piensas, yo no sé lo que hay.